You are now listening to the Mill Social Talks podcast, hosted by Leroy via Mill, Chicago's best and finest when it comes to real estate. Find your forever home with Mills Realty.
All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Mill Social Talk. Here on this episode, it's kind of more laid back. I'm kind of just going to try and to lead this conversation. I'm Realtor Renzo with Mills Realty, and this is...
Leroy Manager Broker at Mills Realty.
Yeah, so I'm an associate of Leroy's. We thought it'd be fun to kind of give you guys information regarding investment properties, investing into, maybe a work, something to work on, like a big project, and get a profit for it. Of course, in the end of the day, we're all trying to make a buck. We're all trying to increase our profits, right? So let's get into it. So Leroy, what do you think, first of all, who should be investing into properties? What kinds of people should be looking to invest in property? And what does investing mean?
Wow. You come up with loaded questions.
Yeah.
I mean, that question could be like so huge.
Right.
I mean,
but let's talk about income. So what do you think a person, what kind of income and what kind of person do you think could invest into property?
All right. Let's talk about investment, because that, I mean, there's so many tentacles and so many people that can invest, and there's so many ways to invest in. My investment and your investment and John and Mary and Sue is totally different, but we're all investing. So let's talk, if we're talking property investment,
right?
Who should invest? Everyone should invest, really, when it boils down to it. Everyone that has some kind of income, I'm gonna say for now, I'm gonna say disposable income. Some people have investment, some people have property, and there is called house poor. And so you don't want to invest when you're house poor. Some people have disposable income and can just go ahead and make extra money or repair.
And so sorry, for those people who don't know what disposable income means. So disposable income means like you have everything, all your necessities already taken care of. You're living comfortably at this point, and maybe you can afford maybe a Corvette. Maybe you can afford something on the side because everything, all your necessities, your kids are fed, you have a roof over your head, you're not worrying about rent, and you just have money accumulating over time, and now you're wondering, what can I do with this money? And I that's what you mean by disposable income.
And you don't have to be totally, you don't have to worry about anything, but you want to have enough to, you have 6 to 8 months in the bank in case you lose your job. So you have that's reserves. So you can comfortably have money to put aside to reserve every month. Yeah, then you can think about investment, because putting the money in the bank and you're getting 1% or 0.5 doesn't do anything for you. So if you can pay your bills, if you have enough money to go out to dinner and go on vacation, and you're not investing, then you're doing yourself a disservice by not investing. And investing is a wide gamut, but for this particular topic, we're talking real estate. Right. So who should invest in real estate? Folks with disposable income, because you don't want to buy a home and you can't maintain it. Because if you're buying a home, now we're two types of investing. You're talking about the home that you're going to live in and the home that you're going to rent. So first of all, you want to buy a home to live in. I mean, because that's where you buy a home, you live in. That's where you get your tax breaks and everything else. And then when you can afford that with no problem, then you decide to buy investment property. So it's a matter of where do you want to invest, and if you want to invest in your home, apartment building, a 2-flat, a condo.
So let's talk about the individual who has their home, right? Let's say I had bought a house, and I'm paying my mortgage pretty comfortably, there's no worry about that. I've been saving up some money, and I'm looking to maybe buy a property to rent out so that I can get that passive income per month, right? So first off, a big thing that people, are familiar with is HGTV, right? Like flipping houses, right? And they make it look so easy. We're gonna take this dirty old home and we're gonna flip it, and it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna make twice the profits or something like that, right? What about that process isn't explained on HGTV? What is the nitty gritty things that people don't expect when you want to buy that property to rent out, or that's extra side job? What do you, the nitty gritty? You know,
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
That comes all the time to especially new investors,
right?
Who watch these television shows,
Social media guys,
and they take 6 months, 4 months of work and put it into 1 hour.
Right.
And you look at that stuff and you say, oh my gosh, they did all this, and they come to you and say, I want to do that. Now, real estate is local. If you're an investor, you got to know your neighborhood that you're buying. If you're going to go ahead and purchase real estate to rehab because you want to make money, you want to flip a home,
right?
First, know that neighborhood. There's something called ARV. Now, if you buy a home for $100,000, and that ARV is $250,000.
What does ARV stand for?
The after repair value.
After repair value. Okay.
So you want to know, if you go to your agent, that agent has to be aware of that neighborhood and find out if that neighborhood would actually get the value when you're done. Now, I don't want to get too
right, but I guess this is what you're saying, right? So we live in Chicago, right? Yeah. And let's say you find a house in the South Side of Chicago, and we're not knocking the South Side. Yeah. The South Side is a great place,
fabulous place,
right? But you wouldn't go to Englewood, make a mansion in Englewood, and expect it to be, you get what I'm saying, right?
Well, you can't overdevelop a home.
Overdevelop, yeah.
Because you will lose money. And if you're working with an agent or a broker who doesn't understand what it takes to give you good advice, you could lose money. You walk into a home, it costs $45,000. However, the ARV is $200,000. And then you spend another $100,000 repairing. Not a great return, because now you're in at $145,000. That's just purchase. But I want to explain something to folks that really don't know and have to look at the numbers when you want to flip a home. This is so important. Don't look at HTV and HGTV or any. I don't want to knock that particularly, but people look a lot at that or some of the shows and says, I can do this.
Yeah.
Now, these are some things that you have to remember when you're thinking about flipping a home. There's a cost to flipping a home. Your cost is $45,000. Flip a home. But you remember, you have a closing cost. So let's say that closing cost is $5,000. So really, that home costs you $50,000. Now, you have, if you're borrowing that money and you're borrowing money to repair it, you have a cost also. So let's say it's going to cost you $100,000 to do that home. So it's $50,000, you're borrowing $100,000. But also remember, there's a carrying cost to that $100,000. Right? So now that $100,000, because it depends on what bank you use, whether or not you get a moratorium on the payment, or you got to start making back the payment. That depends.
The borrowed money is always difficult, right?
Always difficult. Well, there's lots of lenders who have this kind of loan. But if you're looking at $45,000 or $50,000 for a home, now you're borrowing $100,000 from a loan. Now, what is your carrying cost and how long it's going to take you to sell that home? So let's say you're paying $1,000 a month on that mortgage.
Right.
So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say it's 4 months to done. They have an additional $4,000 per month to carry that loan, right? You have to carry that loan. So you have it 45 or 50. You get 100. Now you got another 4,000.
So I get what you're saying is it's not just buying the property and fixing it. There's also like just having it over time. This is going to have you some cost to it. So it's not just, I'm going to buy it and then I'm going to buy services to fix it up. No, sometimes there's loans and implications.
There's loans and there's light bills and there's water bills.
Right. And then over time, those things add up.
And then when you sell that home, there's commissions to be paid.
Right.
So you got to calculate that money and say, what is going to cost me and all that money so that you're actually making money and not just buying home because you want to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you bought the house and then maybe you make $1,000 or $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just want to be busy, say I'm an investor. You want to buy a home, know your numbers, and say, okay, you know what? I can sell this home for $200,000. So all my costs, my carrying costs, my insurance is going to run me $125,000 or
Mm-hmm.
$130,000. Now you got another $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I sell this house, I'll pay X, Y, and XY insurance. Okay, you know what? I've actually made
Mm-hmm.
X amount of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of folks buy home and they don't think about all the costs that's
Mm-hmm.
associated with it. And they're like, I didn't make much money. Of course not. You have to calculate your costs.
Right. And so I want to who so now you talk about all these costs, then a person who doesn't know about anything about investing and flipping houses, now they're kind of concerned after hearing this. So who do they talk to get
Well,
this up?
an experienced agent, I mean, myself, I mean, or like, okay, say if someone's going to walk in and purchase a home,
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to talk to your contractor. Don't assume.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also, I call it in case stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if that property is going to cost you $100,000, you got to budget $110,000,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you don't know what's behind the wall. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's under the floors. Sometimes you walk in there, it's like, oh, it's great. And then you turn around, there's termites, and you didn't see that termite.
Mm-hmm.
So you can never budget exactly. So you want to walk into your contractor. And a lot of times the contractors don't see what's behind the wall. Depends if you got to tear it out.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just cleaning up, sometimes a lot of time you get away with it. But if you got to tear the walls down, do electrical, you may find some BX behind the walls.
Right.
And of course, in Chicago, you're not using BX, you got to use piping. So,
Mm-hmm.
so you got to be ready. Not that I'm saying this in real time, in real fact, because there are people who have the fantasy
Mm-hmm.
of want to do a home,
Mm-hmm.
but have never been given the detail
Mm-hmm.
of what it takes to do that home.
Mm-hmm.
You follow?
Yeah.
So, but they have this fantasy like,
Right.
I'm gonna rehab this home,
Right.
and then you turn around, you lose money.
Right.
Then you said, I lost money, and then what happened?
Right.
And then because I have seen people who lost money
Mm-hmm.
rehabbing. Most people make money when they know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the other day I was and we're about to maybe talk about prices here, but I was talking to a person who's trying to buy a house for his family, right? Like big family. Of course, Hispanic families they like to keep everything together. I understand that, right? Family. So he wanted to buy a house for $40,000 with a family of six. And to me that's like very like wow, like I don't know how that's going to work, right? So in terms of prices, let's say just focusing on Chicago, most of our viewers are from Chicago. What is a good, starting off range price for someone who wants to maybe invest into flipping a property for the first time?
Well, location again.
Right.
You can flip anywhere.
Right.
I mean, you can flip north suburb, south suburb, east and west. It all depends on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about that guy, the family who wants to spend $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Will you get that $40,000 on the north side of the city? No. Maybe in some of the suburb you made, the south side of the city, but not that. No, flipping is a matter of where you are and what your budget is. Because you can take $1 million property and flip it to 1.5, 1.8, right? So location again, back to location. So there's not so much, to answer your question, it's not so much of a price. It's a matter of where you are and what your budget is in order to flip. Right. So, because I remember working with a friend of mine, and we was up in northern suburb, and he wanted to flip a house at $945,000, but we got outbidded, right? Because it sold for 1.2, right? And they turned around and flipped the home, I think, for 1.7, right? So it's a matter of your budget, where you're located at. So there's no box to say, right? I got to flip at 40, or I got to flip at $1 $1 million. You can flip it anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the value is there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think you really have to be knowledgeable about the area,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
one thing when I was getting my real estate license, a new kind of concept that came to me that, when it was told to me, I was like, that makes sense, but I never really thought about it. So we do this thing called a CMA, comparative market analysis, right? Where if we're trying to sell your home, we have to look at the surrounding neighborhood and see kind of similar properties, and what they're priced at, what they were sold at, so that we can sell your house, your property, at a good price, a reasonable
At a market price.
price.
What a buyer will pay for.
Right. So now we were talking about this. So what happens if you see, like I said before the example, I said, what if you see a mansion in the middle of the south side of Chicago, like a massive mansion in the middle of inner city, south side Chicago? That mansion's really nice, but if you do the CMA, first of all, you're not going to find any other mansions out there. So what are you going to compare it to? But what I'm basically saying is that the surrounding neighborhood, eventually, if you flip that mansion, there's diminishing returns.
Could be.
You know what I mean? So just because you put $2,000 in doesn't translate to $2,000 more in the price, if that makes sense.
Well, see, those are sort of a isolated situation, and that do happen where you find like a big house in the neighborhood, right? That could happen. That depends. That goes a little bit further in that if you're going to do something like that, you got to have really some experience to decide, can I buy this house, repair it, and get a value for it that I'll make money. So that's really when you get experience involved, because if you're going to sell that house to another mortgage broker or to another person that's going to get a mortgage, you got to figure out if this house compared to maybe, now that house may be valued outside the neighborhood, right? So normally when we do a CMA, we want to stay within, for me personally, I try to stay within 3 blocks because Chicagoland is a neighborhood by neighborhood program. So
like a mile.
Yeah. A mile is where their appraisal will go. But when I'm doing a comp for a client to get the best value, I want to be within 3 blocks.
Right.
I want to be within 3 blocks, and I want to be within 90 days. Now, we can go up to 6 months. We can go up to a mile. Now, back to your question, but that's really for a home. That's my preference because that gives me a really good value for my client. And so I'm not underselling. I'm not overselling, but I'm pricing right. Now, back to your question, in a mansion in the middle of a neighborhood where there's no other mansion, right? Someone years ago decided to over-improve their property. Right? And then now you have this issue that's, well, can I buy it? Can I flip it? That's really an experienced broker would need to handle that and find out what the value of that is, because more than likely that broker needs to go outside the neighborhood. They got to pick and choose a few things that may actually fit. We may have to look at bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage. And so we have to match that with a couple of different things on what they're selling for, what the neighborhood is. So that's a little bit more complicated for the regular AB investor. It's not something that I can tell you, we can flip this home. No. And I would encourage my client to buy a home of that sort until I do a really good analysis and to find out if that home can be sold based on other things, other property, and how it fits within the neighborhood.
Yeah, I get you. What about this situation, right? So we were talking about, I was talking to someone about this, right? If you installed like a really fancy robotic AI shower, right? Like, that's really cool for you.
For you, yeah.
But most buyers don't care about that shower. You get what I'm saying? So there's certain things, like if you're flipping a house, you could, maybe, tell me if I'm wrong, you have to be mindful of the buyer, right? You don't want to just put in all these fancy stuff that's like not that important to the average buyer. Am I correct in that?
So a home will only sell based on the market value.
Right.
I mean, that's what, as an investor, whoever's looking at this, you should know only the market value will sell a home. So if you go inside and you put, all right. So let me give you an example. I counseled a friend of mine who wanted to put so much into the house. I told him, this is not where you're gonna live. This house got to be nice. You got to be clean. You gotta have the bells and whistles, but you can't over improve the home so much that you can get your money back.
Right.
You are buying a home for investment. So since you're buying for investment, you got to be able to say, you know what? I'm gonna put my money into the kitchen. I put my money into the bathroom. I have a real nice fixture. But you can be basic or you could be high end, depending on what you want to sell it for. But at the same time, you have to be mindful that it's the market that will dictate the price. So no matter what you can put gold. You know what I'm saying?
A gold toilet, right?
Gold toilet. And if all it's going to do is sell for $200,000, that's all it's going to do.
Yeah, that gold toilet is not going to do anything to the price, you know.
It's not going to do anything for the price because you've over improved the price.
Right.
So, and you have people who, and back to the guy who I counseled, but he wanted so much of it to be put in the house. I'm like, but I couldn't help him. But some people, if you don't listen to your broker, you will lose money, right? So pay attention. Listen to your broker and you will be fine as long as that broker is experienced. If that broker is not experienced, then find someone who's experienced in the things that you want to do.
So in terms of the experience versus not experience, what are indications that red flags or good flags, green flags? You know what I'm saying? What separates a realtor when you're, let's say a person wants to invest, they go into a brokerage. How can someone do a litmus test? What are questions maybe that they can ask to kind of gauge how experienced these people are in terms of flipping houses and doing that?
It's simple. You could ask. Basically, have you ever flipped a home before? Have you ever flipped your own home before? They may say that yes, they may say no. But one of the things that I like to tell people to gauge, find out let me say this, if your broker wants to constantly sell you property, if they constantly want for you to close on something, the broker has to have your best interest at heart at all time. You gotta have your best, when I say your best interest, they gotta know, they gotta know you. Your broker gotta interview you. They gotta tell you, they got to be interested in what you are doing and your benefit and not their benefit. So if you feel that broker is only interested in selling you a home, that's a red flag. This is a service industry. If they're interested in just, let's buy it, let's make an offer, you may be thinking,
right,
you know?
Right. Or maybe they're trying to rush you through the process. When are we going to sell? When are we going to sell? Yeah. When are we going to get ready? When are you going to sell? Come on.
So that's like the biggest red flag for me. I want to get to know you. Before I even think about selling you a house, tell me about you.
Your goals.
Tell me about your family, your goal. Tell me about you. So I can say, you know what? This worked, this doesn't work. Some people do not know what they want to buy. And that's the truth. I want to say this to the camera. Some buyers do not know what they want. As a broker selling homes, I will not determine what you want, but I can give you advice on what you want. It's up to you to take it. But depends on your situation, your job, your depends on what you're doing. I can almost tell you should not buy a 2-flat. Maybe you want to invest in a townhome. Maybe you want to invest in a condo. You may want to invest, you know what I mean? Depends on how experienced you are. Say, you know what, hey, how about getting a multi-unit? Some buyers will come to me and say, I want to get a multi-unit. I may say, tell me about you. Does your personality warrant a 2-flat? Tell me about your job. Do you have the time to handle it? All right. So your broker got to get to know who you are. And when they get to know who you are, then you can determine whether or not that person what's right for that person. Not that you will tell them what to buy, but you will advise them on what to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So get to know your broker personally and let them get to know you so they give you great advice.
Right. And that's really interesting. A lot of people come to brokerages and says, hey, I want a house. Hey, I want this. But we as realtors and brokers, we have fiduciary duties to look after your investment,
Correct.
to look after your best interests. So if what you're saying is some guy comes to you, I want to buy a hotel, and you're like, why? Right. Like, you know what I mean? And even if you could afford it, but if you don't have the heart to like maintain it, if you don't have the drive to just to have that and have that for however many years and have the dedication to deal with whatever you need to deal with to have that over the years, then as your broker, I feel like it's a disservice to you to give you what you want just because you want it, even if you're going to ruin it later on.
Totally disservice. Mm-hmm. Because if and as simple as a multi-unit, and some people want to say, I want to invest in a multi-unit. Okay, so great. You're gonna live there? No. Okay. So tell me a little about where you work. Oh well, I work 8 to 10 hours daily. Do you have a maintenance guy? No, but I can have guys to fix it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just see red flags coming down. So why would you want to do that? Do you have time? I mean, can you spend some Saturdays there, or So you got to be careful. It is a disservice if you don't get to know your buyers. Totally.
So I wanted, maybe this is the last topic we go through. We're running a little long here, but I came to you when I first kind of joined Mills Realty. I came to you I rode down south with you to meet a few clients of yours doing a 203K program. Can you enlighten viewers what that is and how that relates to maybe investing and affordable ways to invest property? Because I know that they wanted a multi-unit and they were using this program to kind of help them do that. So,
well, the 203K program is an FHA program, and it's done. It's simple. You buy a home, and the home doesn't have a bathroom, doesn't have a kitchen, doesn't have a roof, but you want that home. The FHA, if you're qualified to purchase that property, for example, it's $50,000. It costs you $150,000 to repair. Put in your roof, put in your kitchen, your bathroom. If that home would appraise at $200,000 later, and you're qualified for that $200,000, FHA will give you the money to do that, to repair. Now, it's a little bit more tricky than that. It's a little bit more detail. And I'll just kind of go over, there's two types of program. That's FHA 203K. There's a streamlined program, which is a $35,000. And then we call a full-blown 203K. So the streamlined program is where FHA will say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this home costs $50,000. Takes about $30,000 to repair. No problem. Going in, you get a draw, you get the money, you do the property, you move in. Now keep in mind, you must live there. That's important. Any of these programs, you must live at the property.
Yeah, FHA usually is you have to live there.
Yeah. Now the 203K, we call the full-blown program. You get a consultant. Anything after $35,000, you get a consultant.
$35,000 in repairs. And improvements and stuff.
Improvement. You get a repair. You get a consultant, and what happened is they actually go ahead and give you a consultant so that you will be able to get the deal done. What that means is that it's $50,000. It's cost $80,000. You hire a consultant to guide you through that $80,000. All right, but you must have a licensed contractor, there must be licensed and bonded and everything else. But it's a great program for the average person who sees this house, but it's kind of messed up, bare bones, and it needs a bathroom, and they say, well, can I buy this? Yeah, you can buy it, but we'll do it.
3, 2, 3, All right. So we just talked about the 3K program. You said that there was it's an FHA loan, so of course you have to live in there.
Mhm.
It's definitely made for bare bone houses, but you want to fix it up. You want to live there, and you kind of just need money and assistance to kind of fix that up. Correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's where you're gonna actually live.
Mm-hmm.
It's your personal home,
Mm-hmm.
and so you walk in the home. It has a space. The bedrooms are great, but there's no kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah. So the work needs to be done. You go ahead and you say no problem.
Mm-hmm.
We go through. Now, one thing I want to tell you: if you're going to do this program, the minimum credit score is 640. All right. So that's going to be very important when you're doing something like this. The minimum credit score is 640.
Yeah.
So, but your lender, I don't want to get into that.
Right.
Because that's a lender question. But
Right.
I just want you to know if it's 640 and above, you'll be fine.
All right. Well, I just want to close up here. We've been talking for a while now. So it's just to conclude, wrap things up. So what we've covered is, if you want to invest, it doesn't really matter who you are, but so long as you have disposable income. And again,
Yes.
we define that as income that you can just spend on whatever, because everything else in your life is already taken care of. So you have this extra money that you can kind of dispose to other things.
Yeah, and
right?
just make sure that your debt is lower.
Mhm.
Not you don't have to eliminate all your debt,
Mhm.
but you're not overburdened with debt.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we talked about, not knowing the neighborhood, right? Knowing your realtor and your realtor knowing you. Because again, realtors, and there's a mutual relationship there, right? We have to know
Exactly.
each other.
Mhm.
And we have to know what's best for each other,
Absolutely.
right? So maybe your goals of investing are kind of unrealistic, and you need a professional to tell you, hey, I know you wanted this, but realistically, I think it would be better off
If
if you
you have
did
this,
this,
absolutely.
right? And then we
And that's
also
a realtor who understands what
Right.
you need.
Right. So,
Okay.
and again, that's just conversations. And most people think that, like, you go to a place, you have to pay for something, but for realtors, you literally go to the brokerage and that conversation is usually for free.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we also talked about, not
Improving.
not over improving your property, and all that stuff. And the last thing we talked about is, although we've kind of focused on a 203K program, I think you would agree that there are multiple ways that you can get into investing into property, right?
Absolutely.
And again, that's just a conversation you need to have.
You
with
need
your
to come in
realtor.
and talk to the broker about that.
Right.
There's depends on who you are, your situation, your financial situation. I mean, there's no one cookie cutter way to get into a property.
Mhm.
There's many different ways, and so you could, once you come in, then we'll kind of know who you are.
So that's about it. We want to wrap things up. Again, I'm Realtor Renzo. You can find me in Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And here's Leroy.
Again, managing broker here at Mills Realty. You can find us at the Mills Social, Facebook, Twitter. Just go to Mills Social. You'll see us everywhere. And the millsreal.com. Don't forget millsreal.com. That's our website. By the way, you can search for properties online, just like any other site. I mean, thanks for supporting us. Our office number, 773-764-9547. Please share the video and tell someone about Mills Realty. Nice to see you, and we'll see you at the next Mill Social Talk.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Mill Social Talks podcast. Remember to follow this podcast on whatever platform you desire. Episodes are released weekly, and if you enjoyed participating, please follow us at The Mill Social at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. For all real estate inquiries, visit millsreal.com. Find your forever home with Mills Realty.